for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah.
Hi, Marika. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Paula. How are you?
I am well, thank you. I'm well. It is nighttime now, so I've had my full day and I'm really excited for this interview because you have so much to share about your journey, your story, and I think people watching on the SheHH podcast can learn so much about the story that you've lived so far. And you really have a lot going on. Like you wear a lot of hats, and I was like making these questions. I was like, oh my gosh, there's loads of commas and it keeps going. And I love to see it. But you're an award-winning recording artist, singer, songwriter, actress,
Yeah.
director, and you're based in Canada, in Vancouver. But overall, above all, what would you say? How would you introduce yourself to someone?
Oh, that's a good question, Paula. I think I just love to be known as someone who loves my family, loves my husband, loves my family. My whole, I think, life goal is to love people, to sing love over people, and to be kind. And obviously, for me, I think as a Black woman in music and film, there's definitely also that element of courage that I've had to just have throughout my career. So I think those are the things. Like I love all the things I've got to do. But if ultimately I was to be remembered for something, it was, my love for people. So
Oh, I love that. I love it's not the accolades and the achievements, which are great, but it's also
which
just
are
like
awesome. Yeah,
they're amazing.
they come and go, they come and go. So it's about leaving legacy, I think.
Exactly. And we're all about legacy at SheHH. We actually end a lot of our interviews asking about legacy. So we might come back around
Cool.
to that topic in a
Okay.
section. But you've mentioned publicly that when you were younger, you actually thought you were going to be a doctor. Like your father is a doctor. And you were
Yes.
like, well, that's my path. That's what I'm going to do. It's laid out for me. But now
Yes.
you are in this industry 20 plus years later. Talk us
Yes.
through the journey and what it was like deciding
Yeah.
music.
It's funny that you know that. Yes. So I grew up in England and my parents met in medical school. My dad is from Mauritius, my mom is from Trinidad. My mom came over as part of this Windrush generation. And they met in medical school. And so I think growing up, I really admired my parents. They were really, they really kind of made a lives for themselves in England. And I was like, I'm going to follow in my father's footsteps. So I could draw a heart like to a T, label it like when I was 12. But I realized too, there's a lot of similarities between doctors and artists. A lot of doctors
Mm.
are artists. And even one of our doctors, he's a doctor, but he's an actor as well, which is funny. But I ended up moving to Canada. We immigrated to Canada, and I think I don't even know what happened. There's just something clicked in me when I moved that I wanted to be a musician. I played piano since a young girl in England, and I grew up playing in orchestras, double bass, and I didn't know how I was going to be a musician, but I felt like I think when I moved to Canada, I really started finding my faith for myself, and I just wanted to sing for God, play piano for God, and so that kind of started the journey into music. I had no idea how to do it. I wasn't even a very good singer when I was a kid, so I'm like, it's gonna have to be a miracle because I'm not even that good. um but that's what I just wanted to give my heart to God and do whatever whatever he called me to do, and so that's kind of how I started. And funnily enough, I moved to a small town in Canada. There were no Black people that I even knew of here, or mixed even. I think there was a few East Indian doctor friends that we had, but it was a very, very white community. And I started in Christian music, but there was really no one to mentor me in terms of being a Black girl in Christian music. And I just asked God, like, God, I want mentors. I want to be able to do music well. And I ended up moving to Vancouver and actually started my career in pop music. But I learned so much that allowed me to cross both into Christian music and pop
Mm.
music. And so super grateful for that.
And at what point did you tell your parents, like, by the way, that dream you had, that whole study, go to medical school, fall in love like you did and become a doctor?
Yeah.
At what point were you like, actually, I'm going to be an artist and be in the entertainment industry? What were their responses like?
Yeah, well, I think they still sometimes ask me when I'm getting a real job, but my parents raised me to just do what I wanted to do and be good at it, So, of course, I think they were disappointed that I didn't want to follow the doctor footsteps. But around the time that I graduated high school, I really felt a strong calling into ministry. And I think they started to recognize it because I would start leading worship more. I'd start being at church more. I spent like so many hours at church. So I think it was a gradual thing. And of course, my dad is a psychiatrist and he's like, "Are you sure you want to be in ministry?" Like I see a lot of pastors. I'm like, I know, I know. So I think it took a little bit of getting used to, especially because I was so gung-ho on being a doctor. But now they see me, we just did a show in my hometown that I did with Brian Doerksen and it was such an incredible experience to have my parents there watching. And I think for the first time they really understood my
Mm,
calling and what I'm doing. And they've always been supportive. They've never been like, "Well, you're on your own, kid." I couldn't be where I am without my mom and my dad. And so yeah, even though they were a little hesitant, they always just championed me because they knew I was going to do what I was going to do anyways.
yeah, and I guess if they're going to see you on stage, like singing, doing your thing, then they can almost like in that moment see God through you. Like, hey,
Yeah.
she's really meant to be there. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and that's pretty special because I always wanted to help change lives with my music and encourage lives with my music. So the fact that my parents could really see that,
Mm.
it was a blessing.
Oh, that's really beautiful. And yeah, you say like you've been on the stage and you've been doing this for a while. And your parents have had the time to kind of see you do this and for as long as it's been. There's been multiple. I've got this from the press release. And I was so impressed. I was
Yeah.
like, I have to get this into the interview. But multiple number top 10 singles on the radio, cross Christian, outside of Christian music. You have been in multiple films and TV shows. I was watching your show reel and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I watched that show. I didn't even realize that was her. Like, so a really successful acting career as well. And just multiple hats, directing as well. Obviously, your daughter being an actress as well. You've done some really cool stuff. I would love to know what has been your favorite thing so far career-wise? Like what's been a career highlight?
That's a good question. I mean, probably a couple things. Doing film and television with my family has been a huge career highlight. We always kind of set out to do that together, and a lot of the projects that we filmed, we've gotten to do together. Obviously, Mallory Towers that we get to do in England with Zoe. That was special because I love England. England has my heart, and to be able to do that for like the last 6 years with her has
Yeah.
been really great. Probably this last year and a half, I've been doing the Come Now's the Time to Worship tour with
Mhm.
Brian Doerksen, who wrote that song, and we've been celebrating 25 years of that song. And we've gotten to tour in the UK. We did Big Church Fest. We've done the USA, we've done Canada. We're planning another Canadian tour, and touring with Brian and seeing how his songs have changed people's lives is such an inspiring thing because it's amazing to obviously sing those songs on the stage. But I think my favorite part is hearing the stories
Yeah.
after. People are literally in the hospital singing his songs, getting better, being
Ooh.
encouraged. People have been saved from suicide listening to his songs. Like this is real stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think the highlight's really been just doing life with Brian and Joyce and their family, and our families doing it together. So that's definitely a career highlight for sure.
Yeah, you actually touched on something I was going to ask about because a lot of the like latest singles like on your Spotify or music that your daughter's actually done has been with Brian. I would
Yeah.
love to know like how that connection even happened because obviously yeah, he's like a legend. He's had music out and produced worship music.
Yeah.
What was like? How did your families connect and how were you able to be a part of a lot of the music he's released as well?
Yeah, I mean that was totally a God thing. 2013, 2010, I think around there. A good friend of mine actually worked with their family because they have special needs kids. And so my friend was one of their care workers for their kids. And she said, "Do you want to come to a Brian Doerksen concert?" I'm like, "Brian lives here?" Like, I had no idea whether he lived even in like close to our city. And I said, "Oh, like his album, The Father's House, really impacted my life when I was a teenager." And I said, if he ever does that again, I want to be on his like marketing team. I want to get that out there and whatever. And he ended up that night at the concert announcing he was doing a new musical called Prodigal God. And fast forward, my friend ended up recommending me for one of the to be in the musical. And Brian asked, I got a call from Brian. I'm like, I'm talking to Brian right now, and this is weird. But he asked me if I would sing the lead role in the musical. So that's actually how we met. But we didn't really start hanging out as families until COVID happened, the pandemic happened. And I would go to a market that was on the way to his house to get our groceries. And we ended up, he makes chai from scratch. And so we would end up stopping outside of his house. We would be on the outside, they'd be on the inside, and they would pass us chai. You know, we didn't know what was going on back then. And our families really became close during that time because none of us were touring. There were no film things happening.
Yeah.
We were kind of just at home. And so that's actually when I started directing, because we're like, what can we do at home? So we started making these Christmas specials. And he's like, you should start directing. I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but okay, let's do it. And yeah, we became really, really close. And I think the music stuff, the film stuff, it came out of our relationship. And I think that's something, I always prayed for a mentor. I was like, God, I just want someone to be able to talk about everything with. And, it took like 20 years or something. But, Brian and Joyce have become some of our best friends, but also mentors, just watching him work and how they do life and family and career has been really inspiring. So yeah, it's a true friendship and a true collaborative partnership. And yeah, I'm so grateful for it.
I always love when I hear stories from artists where it's been like, oh, I listened to this person, I was really blessed by their music, to like fast forward to them being like, mentors, friends, family. Because it just talks to the fact that this is more than just like music. It's like life, life
Well,
giving.
yeah. And I think too, a testament to how God is listening, and I think for many years, I didn't think there would be anyone to come along and really know me. It's one thing actually to be a Christian artist, to be a Black girl Christian artist in Canada is like a whole other thing. And Brian and Joyce really have just gotten to know me, and they see me and they empower me as I am. And so I think there's a lot of hope there that I've learned through just trusting God. And so even when it looks like there's no doors opening or everything's against us, it's like there are still people out there that are listening to the whispers that are there for us to partner with, to help us to just do life together. So yeah, it's like a dream. It's like a bit of a dream come true that I didn't think I ever needed or had. And it just keeps getting better. So
I love to hear that. I always love the like positive stories that are linked to people doing life with other people. Especially like, that whole thing of like don't meet your heroes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always get nervous about that, but I always love it when you do meet them and they are actually, as amazing as you hope they would be. But yeah, I wanted to touch on something you mentioned. So I introduced you as an artist from Canada. We know you also grew up in the UK. We had a great chat about like you actually being from the UK. Like, it's not just London, the
place. I've been a Geordie and a Brummie. I've been
She knows
all the accents.
She knows them. But also you mentioned your mom and dad being from Trinidad and Tobago and Mauritius, so having that kind of like Afro-Caribbean flavor as well. And then obviously living in different parts in Canada, now being in Vancouver, which is obviously quite a huge, diverse city. There are so many like cultural influences I'm hearing just as you speak, but I would love for you to talk about how you think these diverse influences have actually impacted your relationship with music or the music that you produce.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think one thing is it's kept me different. The Christian music landscape sometimes can sound very much the same. And that's just part of the industry part of it. There was this research that one of our friends did in the US, and it's basically like the top 100 songs on the Christian music charts are written by like 6 churches. And so you're like, 6 churches, that's creating our whole worship industry. Oh my gosh. And while the worship industry there's definitely a place for it. I do feel like, even being able to work with Brian, I've been placed with someone who allows us to write the music that we are supposed to write and sing. And I think it's such a shame when we leave our culture out of our music. And so, I just naturally sing what I sing. It doesn't even matter, what is out there. I'm just a natural, like, I just do what I do. And I love to encourage other people, especially people of culture, to not be afraid to write that kind of music, because that is exactly the music that they're supposed to write and that the world needs to hear. And so I think because of my diverse background, I look at things very differently. Like, I feel like it's not a competition. It's not for the number one spot. We're all in this together. It's very family fueled. It's very relationship focused, which I think I get from my Afro-Caribbean side. We're eating together. We're eating great food together. We have to dream big, because if we don't dream big, we'll get taken out. And we do oftentimes, sadly, have to work 10 times harder than our Caucasian counterparts. But I think it makes us stronger. And it allows us, I think, to make room for a true kingdom of God in what we're doing. The kingdom of God isn't just Caucasian, worship music and industry. And it's not just Black people being the side gigs to the white people, and I think part of my passion is to put more Black people in the forefront of music and film, both in Christian and non-Christian settings, because that's just what we're called to do, is to, do what we dream, to share the love of Jesus with people. So yeah, it keeps me grounded, to be honest.
That's so good. Oh, I love to hear that, especially being from the UK, from London, where you meet people from all over. And
Yeah.
like, you will know this, but the sound that comes out from like ethnic minorities or non-white people in the UK is it's very soulful. It's very real. It's, very much, like you said, family and faith infused. And I think one of the reasons why you've been able to have such a long career is, in any of the spaces you find yourself in, people can see you and relate, because there's like, oh, there's another. There's a that kind of looks like me. I've gone on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. And you people want to see other people that look like them in these kind of platforms. I think it's important. It's important for young people to see people that look like them, and older people to see young people that look like them on the stages. And again, I think it's just the heart of the kingdom of heaven, on earth. And so, yeah, it's good. And, there's things about our cultures that, we celebrate well. We take care of people. We are about each other. It is a very team effort, not just about, one person making it to the top. And so, I love that. I love that about our culture.
I love that. And I love that your parents kind of instilled that on you, because it could have been easy, especially in the UK, especially during the time they came. It could have been easier for you to go to school and decide, I'm just not gonna be really. And I'm grateful, especially for the Windrush generation, because they did pave ways for people like me in the UK who are now like first generation. And it's very easy for me to be myself out loud.
Totally. They paved the way, because they were head down, work hard. And I think, I don't ever take for granted the fact that my parents were part of that and allowed us to be able to do what we do now, because they did trailblaze.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I'm really glad that we can even like touch on that, because it's not many people that when I do these interviews that side of things comes up, because it's such a niche part of history. Like, even to hear you talk about the Windrush generation as a Canadian artist, I didn't expect this conversation to go there. So I do love
I did. And you know what, that all happened because of my daughter filming. And one of the parents was like, oh, you know that there's this whole thing with Windrush. And what was crazy is I Googled it, and there was a service that happened in London that the Queen attended. And at the service, they were playing one of Brian's songs. I think they were playing Faithful One. And I was like, this is crazy. I'm just learning about this Windrush generation and, all this stuff. And wow, for someone, for me who doesn't have a lot of history because we just don't know our history, um, to then learn about some of this history of our, of our UK and our parents immigrating. And it's such a treasure to me, because I think one of the things I love about the UK is the history. And I'm not afraid of like colonialism. Like, come on, I love the architecture. I became, I love Jesus in England. Like, there's such good, solid foundation of faith
Yeah.
in a country like the UK, and that foundation built the rest of my life for me. So it's not about the slavery and the things. I'm like, of course that's there, and we acknowledge it, but God is just calling us to live in freedom, and God's calling us to not stay in the, stay down. It's really to inspire more generations. And I think knowing that history and what our parents, our grandparents, our uncles and aunties did before us allows us to even walk in that power moving forward. So I'm totally passionate about that.
Oh, I love that. No, you're so right. It's like, if we do know, we'll work harder, because why would I make the sacrifice my parents made be in vain? Why would I
Yeah,
not live out loud if I know how hard my parents had to go through to
absolutely.
do this?
Absolutely. And the fact that we can live out loud, when maybe they couldn't so much, is such a testament, yeah,
Yeah.
to where we are and exactly where God put us in time now to
Mhm.
be. And so, yeah, I'm so loud. I've lived so out loud, Paula, and I'm sure you do too. I looked you up too. I know you are. So
That's so funny. That makes me laugh when someone's like, "Oh, I know you live out loud. Like, I saw you
no,
on
oh yeah, oh
Instagram."
yeah. I googled you before I got on this Google Meet, my girl.
That's so
I
good.
told
Oh
you
my
we're gonna be
gosh.
good friends. We're gonna be good
Oh,
friends.
you know, for sure, for sure. Okay, let's jump into some music now, or some more
Yeah,
music now. So let's start with your song Every Dream, God Who
yeah,
Sees, by
yeah,
you and Brian. It's such a beautiful song about God seeing and hearing us. And it also talks a lot about the unity of the believers coming together. Can you
yeah.
please tell us the story about writing and producing this song?
Yeah, I mean that's funny, because that's like we call it our like kind of mini political song. We don't typically write political songs, but in the midst of the pandemic, all of these things were happening, and of course there was the Black Lives Matter things that were happening in the States. And the interesting thing with Canadians and Americans, like oftentimes Canadians think they have nothing to do with America. And I remember during that time, a lot of my friends were like, there's no racism in Canada. And I was like, okay, hold up a second. I'm like, wait a second. And so it really started all these conversations between my very Christian friends and the subject of racism. And I typically, Paul, have not grown up with racism in my face. Like my parents never taught me, to always have that around. I think that's, it was a blessing for me. But during that, but definitely there's things that I noticed, like I get pulled over more than my friends get pulled over. People look at me when I go into the store. Like, there's stuff, I just don't let it rule my life.
Mm,
And through the pandemic, we started having these conversations. I started having conversations with my Caucasian friends about how different my life really was to them. And then Brian had started writing this song called Every Dream, because he was watching me, I guess, kind of struggle through some of those conversations and some of the experiences. And I heard him sing it, and I was like, can I finish that song with you? Can we sing it together? Because I think there's something powerful about us, like him as a white man, influential leader, and me as a Black girl, artist, pop recording artist, singing something like that together. And even us doing it together was a bit of a statement. And so we finished the song together, and we sing it on tour everywhere we go. And it is really this idea of, I didn't want being Black to be an angry thing. I wanted it to be like, hey, people across wherever you are, see us, because there's still places that we go, churches, and then sadly it is actually a lot of church circles, that I walk into rooms and people still don't acknowledge me. I have to walk into rooms, and I know it's a woman thing too. Like, I know in
yeah.
some places it's like, yeah, the women are like the side help or whatever. And I have so much theology on that, but for the most part, it's just kindness. It doesn't matter who you are in a room. Just walk in and say hello. If you're different, try even that much harder because
Mhm.
those people don't feel included. You know, me, I say me, those people, I am one of those people. And so I think throughout my career, especially, one thing I learned in pop music, they don't do that in pop music. Everyone in the industry acknowledges you. They probably assume that you're somebody special, so that they value you. You know, I learned that in the mainstream music world. And so when I started getting into the church world, I realized, like, man, people don't say hello. You know, welcome here. Glad to have you. And it even gets kind of harder, even the higher you go in the industry, because everyone's somebody, but it's really not about your titles. It's about, like, you're just a human, be kind, you know? And so that's become a song, a kind of an anthem of our relationship and of our lives. Went across Canada on the radio. And you know, that's our hope, is for people to listen to the music and be inspired by it, and hopefully to see new things. And I think for Brian and I, you know, we've had this mandate of, like, let's put more people of color on stage. You know, let's put more people of color backstage and in front of the soundboard, and, you know, and in our imagery. And you know, he has special needs kids, and we want to do that. We've been doing that with his special needs kids as well, because again, it's just that representation
Mhm.
of the kingdom. And yeah, it's something that we intentionally do. And even out of that, literally this last year, I was asked to write a toolkit for the music industry on equity, and basically how to have, you know, 50% or more of your staff and your artists on your roster and on festivals be people of color. And so it all kind of came, you know, to that, which is an incredible privilege to do, like, basically for the whole Canadian music industry. But I think it should just be for the industry, you know, on a whole. I love the UK actually in this sense, because the film and the music, they don't, you know, there's a lot of room for diversity.
Yeah,
And I
there
think Canada could take a lesson out of your guys' book in terms of who's on stage. Because right now, I think I'm one of the only Black female touring artists in Canada,
Wow.
which is not okay. so, you know, we either have to put more money behind more artists of color, or we need to be changing the landscape of what music is on the radio, so that people
Mhm.
will show up to those concerts.
That's a really good
So
point. Yeah.
yeah, so that kind of all stemmed out of that song.
Wow, that's incredible. There's so many things you said that I'm just like, oh wow. Um, I think one thing that's interesting to me is Brian being an ally as well, because
Yes.
if he wasn't willing to, like, actually hear you, see you, like, I know the song talks about God who sees, but to
Yeah.
actually believe it, and that there's actually a point where you say, or someone says, like, and God teach us to see people as you see. I'm
Yeah.
butchering the lyrics, but
Yeah. No, no, no.
even just like that element of, like, I want to see you as who you are as well, and actually be a part of the solution. I want
Yeah.
to commend him as well, but I want to commend, like, all the people in your industry, in your Canadian music industry, that are actually like, wait, this is actually important, and we do need this toolkit, and we do need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for being, like, standing up and doing it as well, because that must be kind of like nerve-wracking and quite lonely as well.
It is, but you know what? It is, and it's not. Like, Brian's wife Joyce has been such an encourager to me, because she has really, as somebody who, you know, is basically the partner of someone who's super influential in the world, she knows what it's like to not be seen until people know who she is. You know, and I go, how do people not know who you are? Like, you're like the boss behind all of this stuff, you know? And she's really inspired me, really, because she's loved me as I am. She's encouraged who I am. And Brian and Joyce even took a hit for me. Like, basically our last promoters, they didn't really want us all working together, and it ended up quite badly, and there was something kind of racial that happened. And Brian and Joyce decided, you know what, then we're not going to work together. And I was like, whoa, that's a big deal. So you talk about allies. They didn't just like stepped in front of the, you know, firing squad for me. And I think when you have people like that in your life, everything else that happens from there is a bonus, because at the end of the day, you have each other. You know, so yes, it's lonely, because maybe I'm the only Black girl doing it in, you know, in my territory, I guess. But out of it, I've met other incredible Black people that are trailblazing, just like you, just like what you're doing. Um, And it's actually creating this network, like a very, very powerful network of people that their whole, ambition is to just be seen so that we can influence others to do what we love to do for God. So, yeah, it's definitely hard, but I think everyone has an element of hard in their lives. And I think just having those people in your life that are just always there to keep you grounded, make it,
Mm.
able to bear, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. And that's such a beautiful song. I knew it was powerful, but I didn't know kind of why it was written the way it was.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And then on to another song, which is In Search of You, which
Yeah.
again by you and Brian. But one thing that did stand out to me about this song is that the incredible and amazing Phil Wickham
Yeah.
is one of the co-writers.
Yeah,
That's like,
Phil.
yeah, that's like
Yeah,
huge.
that was a crazy song experience because it was the first song that I had like produced outside of Canada, or co-produced. I guess we did
Nice.
half the production in Canada, half the production in the US. And I had met this producer, Adam Watts, who did all, like, I don't know if you remember, like the Cheetah Girls and like High School Musical movies and the Disney movie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to work with this guy. And he had co-written this song with Phil, and I was like, this is a great song. Like, but I could see why Phil never recorded it, because it's kind of a pop Christian song.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I kind of like it, but I'm like, I'd kind of like to change some of it, like to make it mine. I'm like, can you ask Phil and Gannon if I can change it? And they were super supportive. They're like, just do whatever you want to make it feel like you. I love Phil Wickham's music, and so to be able to sing a song that, now we've basically co-written together, it's really special. He writes incredible music, and his songs have influenced my worship life. And and I actually recorded it by myself, and I was like, this just doesn't sound right. And I was like, Brian, will you sing it with me? Or Brian never does that, like, especially on the songs that maybe he does it sometimes, but on songs that he never wrote. So I was like, he's probably gonna say no. But that song, yeah, couldn't be what it is without him on it. And when we sing it together, it's pretty special. So, and I'm like, does Phil Wickham know that Brian Doerksen's singing one of his songs? Like, I should tell him. No, but
That is
it's pretty
incredible.
special. Like, seeing the worlds come together is really cool.
Yeah. And that's the most recent single at the moment. How's the response been for that song?
Yeah, it's been really good. Again, I never take for granted our Canadian radio community. They have been from the beginning supportive of all the music that I've ever put out. And that kind of happened by accident, because I was a pop recording artist,
Yeah.
and I had a Christmas song that my friend, who's Holly Taylor, is a radio promoter, and she's like, I think this song would play good on Christian radio as well. And she didn't really give me a chance to say yes or no. She kind of just put it out there. And so that's how my, Christian crossover career started. Was I had a song on pop radio at Christmas and on Christian radio at Christmas. And from there, I just started, some of these songs just ended up on Christian radio. And so it's been amazing. Like, everything that Canadian Christian radio has done has been nothing but supportive. They've been huge supporters of our tours when we go out. And to see some of these people that I've just been emailing or phone calling, interviews, is a really special time. To thank the people in person is amazing. And to be honest, we couldn't do what we do without them getting the music out there. So
Oh, I love
yeah.
that. And yeah, you,
Mhm.
you lot in Canada, I was gonna say you lot, you lot. You guys in Canada have like a real big like radio community. Like, it's really getting your music on the radio is the way you get it out. Like, we have that as well in the UK, but I think Christian radio in the UK is not as like sophisticated as it is in Canada, in the sense that we have a smaller amount of stations that play.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the artists that we work with, their thing is getting music, like radio plays, like getting the local radio stations to play their music, or getting people to request their music. And that's a great way of actually building a rapport with the community, like on the ground, because then you go on tour and these are the people that show up at your shows. So,
Yeah, I think it's super important, and especially in this day where music can get lost on the platforms. You can send the music out there, but unless you have a bigger audience, I mean, part of that is faith too. Just trusting that God's going to get it into the right ears, at the right time. But I think there is an element of the business part of being an artist that you want to do the best with what you have. And of course, not every Christian artist has the money to put into radio promotion or put into, to some of these kind of business aspects. But at the same time, it's about intention. What do you want to do? What do you want to go with your music? And then trust God for those open doors, because you could be a musician, but your whole heart is to lead worship in a church, and you record your music for your church family, and it's just as important as being on the radio. I think for me, I just always wanted to reach a mass audience. And so it's also my music style as well. I think it does well on radio, which is so funny why I'm touring with Brian, who's like the worship artist. I'm like, he's like, when are you going to sing one of your songs? I'm like, soon I'll sing one of my songs. I'm like, but I like doing this together thing. But he's always like, I need a Marika album. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, and even like with the look you have today, it's giving very much like 90s R&B. So I need you to do like a headshot on the camera.
Oh, you are so funny. You know why I have a hat on? Because I just took my braids out. I'm like at the end of my braids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot how to do my hair now because it's been in braids for so long.
That's me right now, because after
But
this
thank
call,
you.
I'm taking my braids out. So I was like, yeah, we're just gonna make it work for this call.
Oh yeah, totally. This is cool. This is my England hat actually. I
Nice.
did that without even thinking, but that's funny.
No, that's amazing. We're getting towards the end of the interview, but this has been it's been incredible just getting to know you.
Yeah.
We touched on the fact that your daughter's also an actress, and I believe your son like does videography as well, and like that kind of creative element. So
yeah, both. So my oldest son is also in film. He's going to school for film, and my middle son has been an actor. They've all been acting since they were young. So
that was going to be my question. So you really do make it a family affair in the sense of like you're not just like off doing this by yourself, like you bring the family along and everyone's a part of it. So I'd love to know like what the kind of creative vibe at home is like. Are people singing? Are people reading scripts in another room? Like how do you make it a whole
yeah, it is
family
all of
situation?
that. Yeah, it can be chaotic at times, but we know that we're called to this. And so we've kind of made our lives revolve around what, our rest times, we rest, and then our work times we work. But yeah, I mean, in one day we could be rehearsing for a tour. Zoe, my daughter, comes on tour with Brian and I, and it's been amazing. And she's in love with Big Church Fest now. She wants to go every year. But yeah, it's, there's some days where we could have 2, 3, 4 scripts to be auditioning for. The good thing now is post-pandemic, we get to record in our house so that we don't have to go anywhere. And then, yeah, we could be rehearsing, writing. But then there's also like just our lifetime, our family time, and just, being together. It's something also that I always prayed. I was like, God, I want to be a mom, but I also still want to be an artist. I wanted to be able to not have a broken family because of my career. And that was really important to me. And so I definitely carved out a way and trusted God for the ways that we could do it together. And you know what? We don't say yes to everything. We say yes to the things that we feel like God is saying yes to. And even the Mallory Towers thing, I literally was like praying for Zoe to have really good girlfriends. And because of our careers and because we were traveling all the place, she didn't really have a good set of girlfriends. And all of a sudden she booked this Mallory Towers, and the 8 girls, the original 8 girls that are in the show have become like, half kids to us, because we just got to watch them grow for like 6 years. Some of the most special, talented girls, and they'll be friends for life. So again, it was an answer to prayer. And so that's how we do it, and we continue to do it. And if God shifts us, we shift with God. And so, but we enjoy it. It is such a fun industry to be in. Hard at times, but we, we're a mixed family. I'm married to a handsome Caucasian man, and we have beautiful mixed children. And just having that representation on screen is important, on stage as well. And yeah, I'm really, really grateful we get to do what we do.
Oh, I love that. And it must be just so much more fun doing it with like family, and knowing that you have people like at home who completely get it because they're also doing it as well.
Oh yeah. My kids probably think we're crazy at times, but they're crazy too, so it's okay.
Just a house of crazy but fun.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Okay, well, this is the final question. I almost don't want this interview to end. I'm like, can I just like squeeze some more in there? But I did mention that we at SheHH are really passionate about legacy
Yeah,
because we just believe that God is calling us to have lives, have impact that is beyond the here and now.
yeah,
Especially because, and specifically with women, a lot of women in the industry stop at some points because of, circumstances, they get married or they get pregnant or they get busy with work, and then
yeah.
the ministry thing stops. And a big a big pillar of SheHH is we don't believe that you living life should stop a calling on your life.
That's right. Yeah.
I recently got married. That's not stopped. I mean, it paused me for a while. We had a honeymoon. I stopped for a bit,
Yeah.
but as soon as I came back, it was back to SheHH, back to work, and back to everything else I was called to do,
Yeah,
because I wasn't called to stop everything because I'm a wife. I was called to do
that's
this
right.
as a wife as well,
100%. Yeah.
So that's kind of why we're really passionate about legacy. And I would just love for you to maybe chat about some of the things that you hope to do in the future, in your
Yeah.
career, in your life, and what you would love that end legacy, when your time to go is,
Yeah.
people to say she was like this.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. First of all, I love everything that you're doing and everything you just said.
Thank you.
I think that for me, one of my big legacies is just to dream big and trust God. I think every single person, whether they know God or not, has a dream inside of them that they are either moving in, walking in, or that they've buried because someone told them they couldn't do it. And it's something that we've raised our kids with. Every year at New Year's Eve, I make them do dream boards and vision boards. I make them. We love doing it. It's like a tradition. But I probably did make them the first time we did it. But it's become something that we literally watch God tick off our dreams on those boards. And I think if I could leave anything, it was really like, just don't be afraid to dream. And, especially for women, we growing up in church, often we were sometimes suppressed, sometimes silent, sometimes just put in boxes. And, you look at the Proverbs 31 woman, she was a businesswoman. Like, she was getting up before the family, going in to sell her things at the market to bring food home for her family. And so there's definitely a misconception of what women's roles are in ministry, in church, in the Bible. All I see is powerful women in the Bible. And I know that there's more that probably weren't even written about. And so I think part of what I want to do is be a woman that is written about and is remembered for going after the great dreams that God's called us to do, and encouraging and empowering other people into the same thing. So that's a big one for me.
That was a mic drop moment for real. It was like, yep. And I said it.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Marika, for being in this episode, for speaking to me, for sharing what's been on your heart, for being so honest as well, for being hilarious, and for letting us know a bit more about you. Where can people find you and keep up to date with what you're doing?
Yeah, they can just go to marikasiewert.com. That's my website. I'm probably the most active on Instagram. It's just my handle is at marika.siewert. And I usually put all my happenings there. And so that's where people can find me.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the SheHH podcast. If you did, please leave a like rating, comment down below, and share this episode with a friend. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at SheHH podcast.